Hi, welcome to Mystery Monday. I'm Zara Altair, and this is a place where we chat about writing mysteries. And recently we've been going through the whole progression of your mystery. And today we're going to talk about going into Act 2. So, Act 2 is where many first-time writers in any genre can get bogged down. Um, but for mystery writers, this is the stage of your mystery when your detective finds many doors to the puzzle and he starts opening them, but not all of them lead him to the right path. And so you're going to set up his first pushing into trying to discover clues, talking to suspects, sorting out who's lying and who's not lying. So I think it's really important for first-time novelists, especially in the mystery, to focus on your detective and focus on what evidence he finds, either something physical that he finds or what a suspect tells him, because suspects, as we said earlier, have secrets and lies to cover up those secrets. So they may lie to your detective, not necessarily about the victim or the murder, but to cover up something else that they don't want the detective to find out. So lots of doors at the beginning of Act 2. And then we've been using the 40 sentence outline because I love it. It focuses on story. It doesn't get you stuck on trying to fit your scene or chapter into a structure when you're focused on the story. And I think that's really the best way to write a story that readers like, and that's what we all want. So if you're involved in the story, you've got your readers experiencing your protagonist with empathy and looking at the clues and the suspects with a discerning eye, at least through the eyes of your detective. So we're going to lead our readers on and take them by the hand through the journey and the steps and the missteps that your detective takes. So they experience his wins, and they are empathetic to his stumblings and losses. So when a suspect comes with new insights into the victim, or the opponent throws up a barrier, your reader is ready to keep going wherever your detective goes, as long as you focus on moving the story forward. So at this point in your story, your detective has committed himself to unraveling the threads. And in Act 2, you add new twists to the threads and tie some of them up in knots. And it's really fun. You get to play with all these threads that you started in the beginning and add complications for your detectives. But when you keep the focus on your story, you'll avoid all that episodic feeling with no rising tension that can mark you as a first attempt at novel writing. So I really highly suggest that you work through the 40 sentences, and there's a link to the 40 sentences in the show notes for Mystery Monday. So go ahead, grab them, start using them. And here we're going to go into chapters 11 through 15. So the first half of Act 2 sets your protagonist on a journey to the middle. I think if you focus on journeying to the middle rather than journeying to the end, you're going to have, it's going to be a lot easier. So your detective is still learning about the victim and the suspects. And although he's peeling away layers of that proverbial onion, his vision is not broad enough or deep enough. Often that involves he doesn't know enough about the victim's world. It may be a world that's completely new to him, so he has to explore the world in order to ask the right questions. I know the TV series, maybe I'm blanking the name of it, Midsummer Murders, is often involved with discovering a new world in order to navigate through to find the right questions to ask. So you might want to think about that now. You're going to be expanding the victim's world and introducing your detective to that victim's world, and that includes the suspects that are in that world. And as I mentioned earlier, the suspects tell partial truths to cover up their own inadequacies or secrets, and so your detective is going to have to figure out what's true and what's not true. But at this stage, they're just giving him information, and he's going to have to sort through all that information as your story progresses. So chapters 11 through 15 focus on your protagonist as he trips and stumbles and makes mistakes in order while he's trying to solve the puzzle. He learns more about the victim's world, but not enough. All right, so we're still in kind of, I think of it as stage 2 is set up. The beginning was setting up your detective and the murder, and now we're introducing your detective to that victim's world. So it's still a lot of exploration in this part of your story. You're just expanding that new universe and introducing your detective to that new universe. So, Chapter 11 from the 40-sentence outline, your protagonist immediately stumbles on unfamiliar terrain. Everything feels different here, even if it looks the same. New rules, new problems, new dangers, and as he dusts himself off, his insecurities sing a song of future failure. All right, so if we take that and expand it to focus on mystery, your detective is going to stumble. The plan she devises doesn't fit the circumstances, and a new problem or danger upset the plan. She feels stumped for the moment, and the pivot she just took slammed her into a wall. That's pretty much what's going to happen in chapter 11. So if you're stuck in the old plot structure and you want to know where this is in the traditional plot, this is the aftermath of the first plot point. It kind of took that on, and now it's not quite working out the way they wanted it to. Okay, so chapter 12 from the 40 sentences is moving onward. He meets a representative of the extraordinary world, the antagonist, a minion, a mentor, a former ally or enemy who's comfortable here in this world, or maybe even a random stranger who embodies the spirit of this new world. Your protagonist starts to understand the new yardstick that he will be measured by here, and that he understands the dangers he'll face. And this is also where you can work in one of your subplots. And for Mystery Monday, we're going to take subplot B. So here we go in chapter 12 for your mystery. Your detective finds an unexpected ally that tells him more about the victim's world. He starts to understand the complications of taking on the murder investigation. And this could be the enticing new love interest or a new character. And speaking of love interest, this is a good place for them to meet again. So you're carrying on your subplot too. So where are we now in the traditional plot? This is the second complication. All right, chapter 13 from 40 Sentences outline. Your protagonist plots what he thinks will be a safe course through the extraordinary world, recruiting whatever allies and resources he can, and sets off in a new direction. And this is also where you can work on your other subplot. All right. So let's focus in on your mystery. So chapter 13 is armed with his new understanding. Your detective explores the new knowledge, connects clues and suspects with his new understanding, and starts to pursue his new course. Meanwhile, his opponent is challenging his moves, not knowing what the detective knows. I thought lots of fun in this chapter. It's just getting bigger and more complicated. All right. So in plot speak, this is the aftermath of the second complication. All right. Chapter 14 from the 40 Sentences. He seems to be making progress. Yeah, he was freaking out, but now he's getting the hang of this place. Maybe it's not going to be as bad as he thought. The new world throws a problem at him, and he handles it almost competently. Or was that beginner's luck? Well, let's take a look at this from a mystery perspective. So, back in stride, your detective follows clues, successfully interviews suspects, and gets a better picture of the victim's world and how they moved in that world. And if your detective entered the victim's world, she's starting to get the lay of the land. So your detective is starting to move comfortably in this world that was completely known to him or her before. And so is your reader. And your reader's entering this world and exploring it with your detective. So over in Plotland, this is the setup for the first pinch point. All right, chapter 15. So from the 40 Sentences, crossing paths with the antagonist or stumbling into a mess that the antagonist has left behind, your protagonist is taken off guard. He gets a glimpse of the antagonist's true power for the first time and realizes he's in completely over his head as he takes significant damage. All right, so focusing on a mystery, your detective discovers there's more to the murder than he first thought. A discovery like a clue or evidence or something the suspect says reveals a whole new perspective on the murder victim and opens up possibilities your detective hasn't seen. He's once again out of his depth, baffled, and knocked off center. Okay, that's the last chapter for today. And in the plot universe, this chapter equals the first pinch point. So the whole exercise in bringing your readers into Act 2 is expanding your story. Going deeper into your story gets readers turning the pages, and each new problem your protagonist faces keeps readers guessing in your mystery. And in this part of the story, the focus is on unrelenting problems, on the detective's discovery of the victim's world. It's a place they haven't been before, and they're meeting new people and meeting new, going new places, and stumbling around trying to find the right way to solve the mystery. And of course, you're going to test your detective skills. So in this section, take your time to bring the reader and the detective into the victim's world. I know we talked many episodes ago, I don't remember which one, about how the victim is a really important character in your story, and when you're building your character Bible and going in depth into all your characters, you need to do this for your victim, because this is where the detective enters the victim's world and gets little glimpses of the victim and how the victim brought trouble to themselves in whatever way they did. And that's going to depend on your victim's character background. So you're going to develop your victim's world and spotlight the suspects and use clues to take your detective down a wrong path. So here's where you get to bring all that research and world building that you spent time on before you started writing. That's where you get to start bringing all this in, create an environment that's new to the detective and new to your readers. And if you've done your pre-planning by developing the secrets for all your suspects and focusing on the lies they tell to cover up their personal secrets, you've got a lot of stuff coming at your detective, but it's oftentimes false information. So this is a great time to really start playing with your story and the story world and getting your detective to interact in the story. So I'm trying to think how to stress this. One of the problems that new writers have is not getting bogged down in the middle, that long middle. So I think part of what can help you here as you're entering into the middle is to focus on getting to the middle of your story, and the second part of the middle is going to focus on getting you to the end. But right now you're building out and you're just building this whole world and letting your detective discover that new world. So you are introducing your readers into this story world, your story world. So play with it and have fun. All right, I really hope this is helping you, because it's so easy to get bogged down with all those plot points and is this a pinch point or what is this, and you kind of know your story but you're trying to squeeze it in, and this just takes you from one chapter to the next chapter to the next chapter and really simplifies the writing process. All right, so let's get to this week's questions. Okay, I'm starting in on my mystery, but I've heard that authors need to learn marketing. Is that right? Yes, it is. It is. It's the reality of the writing world that um, authors are responsible for marketing their work. And that's true whether you decide to be an independent author and publish yourself, or whether you go with traditional publishing, you're still going to be responsible for your marketing. But since you're just starting in on your mystery, this is the best time to begin your marketing and learn more about marketing while you're still writing your book. So that's going to do two things. So you're going to increase your knowledge about marketing your stories, and also um, get you into a pattern, whatever pattern you develop, to spend time writing and to spend time marketing. I know for many, many writers, writing is in the morning, marketing is in the afternoon. You may have a different schedule, but every author works out some time management system that works for them, where their time is divided between writing the stories and marketing the books. So if you want your book to be successful, you have to consider yourself a business person. So marketing is part of that. And there's a lot of information out there and a lot of misinformation that can send you spinning your wheels. So I've looked at a lot, and I believe that the best place to learn about this is Mark Dawson's Self-Publishing 101, and I'll put a link to in the show notes, so you can go discover more about it, because you'll learn about building a website, uh, how to set up and how to use a mailing list for your readers, metadata for your book that helps you get it categorized in the right places for marketing. You learn about cover design and what it takes. The big part of marketing is how your cover speaks to the readers you want, in this case, your mystery, um, and much, much more. So once again, Mark Dawson's Self-Publishing 101. It's a terrific resource. And then back to marketing. I can't stress enough how important marketing is in your long-term author success. So start learning now. Thanks for that question. That was a really good question and a very important question. I think that a lot of people who are writing a novel for the first time think that somehow, even if they're self-publishing, they're going to put it up on Amazon and people will just flock to their book because it's so cool. Every author needs to learn about marketing because your book doesn't sell itself. That's the bad news. The good news is that marketing takes some learning skill, but it is a learnable skill, and actually in the course of it, you're going to meet new people, other authors, and best of all, you're going to meet your readers and potential readers. So you can start your mailing list before your book is done. You can get potential readers interested and let them know how your writing process is going and how the story is going, and get them involved in the story as you work on it. So highly recommend that you start your author marketing education now. Okay, great question. Okay, next question. I love reading crime novels and want to try my hand. I have an idea, but I don't know anything about the inner workings of a police department. Any suggestions? Okay, I think that's true for a lot of people who love mysteries and like writing and want to write a mystery, but they haven't been spending their time hanging out at the local police department. So I think the very best place to educate yourself with a general background about law enforcement and how it works and how law enforcement officers go through training is Sergeant Derek Pacifico's book. It's called The Writer's Guide to Homicide, the mystery writer's textbook on murder and police work. It's just filled with fabulous, detailed, correct information from a law enforcement officer, and there's little tests and quizzes so you can check yourself on reading. So great place to start, and that too is in today's show notes. And then for specific questions that you have as you're writing along in your mystery, there's a great Facebook group called the Writers Detective Bureau, Questions and Answers. And there's a link to that in the show notes as well. And I would also suggest joining that group and reading the questions and the answers, because that's going to give you a lot more information and can even spark some ideas for your mystery as you're forming your new mystery. So there really are a lot of resources. There are actually people who teach courses in connection with conferences. There's just a lot of things you can do, places where you can learn. So join the Facebook group now, Writers Detective Bureau, and start browsing all those questions and get an idea of what that's like. And also for you and everybody else, it sounds like yours is a local police force, but I just wanted to add that the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, actually has a program for writers, and I put the link in the show notes. So if you have questions about the FBI and how they work, or if your local law enforcement officer needs to work with an FBI agent, you can apply. It is a process. We're dealing with the government. So, but it's pretty straightforward. They want to know who you are and what your book project is, and generally what questions you have to ask. And once you jump through that hoop, there's someone there at the at FBI headquarters who will connect you up with somebody local, so you can go and meet with them and get some in-depth answers to your questions. So that's another resource. I've actually gone through this process and worked with the FBI, and they were just fantastic. I had some really strange questions, quite esoteric, and sometimes they couldn't answer the questions right while I was sitting there, but they did find the answers for me. So be sure to use your law enforcement resources so your details are correct. Because believe it or not, law enforcement people do read mysteries and crime novels as well. And man, they will slam you if your details are wrong. So that was a really great question. Thanks so much for doing that. And hi, Luke. Luke is here. Those are the questions for today. I want to thank everybody for being here, and I'd love to hear from you how your mystery's going and where you are, as well as specific questions. Feel free to get in touch with me and let me know how your writing progress is. All right, that's it for Mystery Monday this week, and we will see you next week. Thank you.